One of the biggest issues in the raw, vegan, or vegetarian world is the topic of B12. B12 is an important issue for all health enthusiasts, whether you are vegan or not. So I'm going to share with you everything that I've learned within the past 8 years of being 100% fully raw so that you can share this knowledge as well. First, let's go over some B12 basics to help you understand the topic. Anyone can have a B12 deficiency, whether they are vegan or not. So what is B12, may you ask? B12 is a vitamin. There are many different types of B vitamins out there, but this vitamin particularly is found in soil. Many vegans or vegetarians are worried about not getting this vitamin because it is a vitamin that is typically found in meat-based products. Animals who eat grass or eat dirt are eating this vitamin in the soil, and therefore their products contain this vitamin. It can also be found in fruits and vegetables. However, it is only found in organic, wild, very nutrient-dense, soil-rich grown fruits and vegetables. Because many people out there are consuming conventionally grown produce that's not grown in rich soil, it's very easy to be B12 deficient when eating those foods. So while B12 is also found in fruits and vegetables, it is actually also a flora that is produced in your colon.
B12 is something that's made by microorganisms in your body. That's where it normally is supposed to come from. It's a byproduct of bacterial action inside your body. And it's a nutrient that your body requires for many things. It doesn't require a lot of it. It would fit on a couple of heads of pins throughout the whole year is the amount that you would probably need, but it's very vital. There's a lot of things that can happen if you don't have enough of it. So normally it's supposed to be made in your body, but there's a lot of things that we can do to prevent that from being made. If you are consuming soda, coffee, tea, alcoholic beverages, antibiotic drugs, garlic, ginger, spicy things, all these things interfere with the body making B12. So when we started doing these things in our society, we started to become B12 insufficient. And that's when they discovered B12 and figured out what was going on. So they said, all right, the only way to keep people from getting B12 deficiencies is to put B12 into the foods that everyone's eating, you know, to fortify the foods. Now also with B12. So for instance, cereal is fortified with B12. They spray B12 right on the cereal as it's going in the box. And they seal up the box and ship it to the store. So that's how most people are getting their B12, because they're certainly not making it themselves because they're drinking alcoholic beverages or coffee or tea or soda, all the things that I named.
B12 is affected by our lifestyle. And our need for B12, our use and ability to uptake it is all affected by our lifestyle, not just how much we take in. Now, there's a lot in the B12 story, but at this day in time, what we find is that in the mainstream world, B12 deficiency is a big problem. B12 deficiency was discovered in people on a mainstream diet. B12 deficiency is no more common amongst vegetarians, vegans, or raw fooders than it is amongst the mainstream population. It's been proven that if a person goes B12 deficient, that if they start eating a bunch of meat, it will not help their B12 deficiency in any way. In fact, in today's world, farmers inject B12 into their cows because the cows also are becoming B12 deficient due to the conditions where these cows are being raised, due to the antibiotics that they're being given, due to the various what are called antivitamins that they're exposed to as part of their lifestyle. And if we read labels, what we'll see is that on various breads, cereals, pastas, and other complex carbohydrate foods, they're enriched with B12. Essentially, people on the mainstream diet are not having B12 problems, each and every person, because they are supplementing with B12 at almost every meal. When we stop consuming complex carbohydrates, and especially enriched ones, for a while, our B12 levels may sink low, but typically they'll come back up, rise to normal functional levels, and we can go through living a healthy life without ever thinking about B12 supplementation any more than any creature would. of course, if a person has a problem, by all means, solve the problem. But we come up with two main options for solving a B12 problem. One is to just supplement and supplement and supplement and keep causing the problem. The other would be to buy yourself a little bit of time by supplementing and then correct the problem, eliminate the cause. Is it too much stress? Is it too much frozen food? Is it not enough sleep? Is it whatever the problem may be that's resulting in B12 deficiency symptoms?
Humans have evolved over time, and many humans produce this intestinal flora, and some do not. Many people who are going raw or vegan or vegetarian are typically worried about being deficient in this because they're no longer consuming animal products. So since I've been raw, I've had many people ask me if I take B12 and if I am deficient. So I would like to tell you a little story. About 6 years ago, when probably about 2 years into being raw, I had a good friend of mine who ended up being B12 deficient, and he asked me if I wanted to supplement with him. So I thought, why not? What's the harm? I heard that there are no negative side effects of taking this and that it can actually give you more energy if you do take it. So I went out, I got the B12 supplement, and shortly after I had a conversation with Dr. Graham, the author of 80-10-10, one of the raw food pioneers in this movement who has basically been leading this for about 32 plus years. And he told me, Christina, get checked before you start taking this supplement. Because B12 is a flora that is produced in your colon, your body may stop producing it if you start taking this supplement, and your body may even become dependent upon the supplement for producing that intestinal flora or that vitamin. Shortly after talking with him, I went and I got checked, and lo and behold, I was not B12 deficient. After 2 years of being fully raw, I was not B12 deficient. I sit here 8 years later of being 100% fully raw, and I am still not B12 deficient. I like to get my blood checked twice a year, perhaps once every 6 months if I can. My levels to this day do not show any signs of B12 deficiency. If you're worried about having a B12 deficiency, let me put your mind to rest. Symptoms of B12 deficiencies include things like dementia, psychological disorders, or even chronic fatigue. These types of deficiencies can take years to develop, and even if you are taking a B12 supplement now, that B12 supplement can last in your body for up to a year. B12 deficiencies are not something that happen overnight, they happen over time.
So rather than guess whether you have it or you don't, or say I don't think I do, or I don't want to take any pills, it's better to be safe than sorry. Go get tested. There's an excellent test for your B12 status. It's not a B12 blood test, which most people would think, yeah, give me a B12 blood test and that'll show me where I am. But there can be false okays with the B12 blood test. That's where they test how much B12 happens to be in your blood. But that's not telling them if your body is utilizing that B12 or not, because there's something else that your body requires to utilize the B12 that it's either making or you're taking, as a supplement or coming in your processed foods. And that's called the intrinsic factor. If your body isn't making enough of that for one reason or another, now you're not going to be utilizing B12. So the best test is not how much B12 is in your bloodstream, but how your body is or isn't utilizing B12, and that's called an MMA test. MMA stands for methylmalonic acid. And there's two types, a urine test and a blood test. The urine test is better. So it's a small letter U, capital M, capital M, capital A. That's the test you want to, that's the gold standard for seeing what your B12 status is, how you're doing.
Is it something that people can do in a normal lab?
Well, sure. I mean, here in the United States, you can get a test kit mailed to you, and you basically get urine into the thing, and you mail it back to the lab, they test it, and you get your results. Then you learn what the range is supposed to be, and you see what your range is, and that way you know. And if you're deficient, you should do something about it. First of all, depending on how deficient you are, if you're dangerously deficient, you should start supplementing with something. I recommend B12 that goes under the tongue, the methylcobalamin form of B12. Not the cyanocobalamin form, methylcobalamin. Methylcobalamin. And the best way is under the tongue, not swallowed, because some people have trouble getting B12 from the swallowed B12 tablets. So under the tongue, and you'll be good to go. Until you can figure out why your body wasn't processing B12 or making B12.
What do you think about B12 injections?
It's another way of getting B12 into your body, but if you're going to give me a choice between piercing the skin and doing damage and setting off alarm bells in the body, because that's what happens. If you stick any kind of needle through your skin, Your body doesn't know why you're doing it. All it knows is danger, danger. I've just been pierced. And surgeons will tell you if you can avoid a needle or a knife your whole life, do it. Avoid the needle and the knife as much as you possibly can. So since I can get B12 under the tongue, I much prefer that rather than piercing the skin.